This man right here is responsible for mixing more Billboard records than possibly any other engineer in history. He's mixed over 7,000 records, totaling over 400 billion streams, and he's mixed for literally anybody that you can imagine. Taylor Swift, Dua Lipa, Doja Cat, The Weeknd, Ariana Grande. Any big pop record over the past 20 years has probably had his hands on it. His name is Serban Ghenea, and he is the gold standard for pop mixing. While Serban is one of the biggest mixers to ever live, he's kind of a mystery. He doesn't do a lot of public interviews, he's not very active online, he's not in chat boards, he's not doing masterclasses. He's such a mystery that I'm not even sure if I'm pronouncing his name right, because I cannot find a clear definitive answer online where he's either said it or corrected somebody. So Serban, if somehow you see this and I'm pronouncing your name completely wrong, I really, really apologize. But since he's such a mystery, whenever there's a new tidbit release about something that he's either using in his studio or a technique that he's using or what monitors he's using comes to light, it really starts to circulate the audio community. You'll see it all over chat boards and forums and groups and content like this. And there's been a really big discovery recently, and that's that there is this obscure piece of gear that he's been using for over 20 years now called the SPL machine head. This is a little red digital box from SPL that came out in the 90s, and it's been discontinued for quite a while now. This is not something that you can even really find on the used market. There aren't any clones of these being made, and up until very recently, there were no plugins of this. This is just a really weird unit that he's had sitting around that has been on his Mixbus basically his entire career. However, very recently, a company called Make Believe released a plugin called MixHead that is completely modeled after that SPL machine head. So once that got released, I was very, very interested to try it and see if I could get a little bit of that Serban magic on my Mixbus or within my elements. And what makes it even more intriguing is that they actually got a stamp of approval from Serban himself, and there's even Serban's preset inside of the actual plugin that I'm going to show you in a second. So I want to dive in and I want to check out this plugin. I want to see, does it really add that magic? Does it get me a little bit closer to what I would consider like a Serban style mix? And do I recommend it for you guys? So this is not sponsored at all. I do love Make Believe, but I bought this plugin with my own money. They're not paying me to make this video. I don't even think they know that I'm making this video yet. So I'm going to be giving my honest opinions. I'm sure that I'm going to love it because all of their stuff is very, very fire. But this is not sponsored in any way, shape, or form. If you want to check it out, I believe there is a intro sale right now, so you can grab the plugin for $99, at least as of right now. I believe the normal price is $179, and I do believe that their entire website is also on sale right now, just to kind of celebrate the launch of MixHead. So go check that out, show them some love. They're very, very, very nice people. But again, this is not sponsored. Let's dive in and let's see what this plugin actually looks like and sounds like. So here is the plugin when you first load it. As you can see, it's a pretty simple layout. I actually love the layout of this because one of my issues with tape machines is typically that they are so big. They have so many different adjustments, especially when you start looking at stuff like Kramer tape from Waves. And for me, I don't use a lot of tape saturation because I do a lot of modern mixes. And tape saturation can really make something dark and almost bloomed a little bit too much. So I'm really keen to see how this handles because the machine head that this is modeled after is not a real tape unit. It's a digital unit that is kind of emulating tape saturation. So this is kind of an emulation of an emulation. But just to get around the plugin, up here, you have an A version and a B version. You have a blend. So if you want to blend between A and B, you can almost do like parallel, of using two different versions of this. You've got all of your presets here. Here is that preset that I was talking about from Serban himself called The One. We'll look at that a little bit later. But once you get past that, this is the actual layout of the unit. So you have your input gain just so you can gain stage going in and out. You have your drive, which is going to control basically how much drive and saturation you're popping on it. We'll kind of see how that interacts with elements. You have your high frequency adjust. So this will basically add a high shelf because as you add saturation, especially tape saturation, it will start to roll off the highs. It will start to kind of bloom those mids. And so a lot of the times tape saturation is synonymous for making things darker. This knob right here is to basically just compensate for that. If you're doing something like a modern, pop mix and you still want it to be super bright, that's a really nice adjustment to have. And that's probably why it has been in Serban's wheelhouse for such a long time. That's why his mixes are so warm, but they're still bright. They're not muddy. They're not dark. They're not dull. And then lastly, you have your output gain, just to kind of gain stage everything as you start distorting things, as you start adding some high end back. You can, just make sure that your gain staging is under control. Other than that, you have your tape speed. So this is kind of emulated after most tape machines where 15 is going to basically be kind of your standard tape sound. You're going to have a lot of that saturation in the mids. You're going to have a little bit of that ease in the high mids and in the highs. If you go to 30 by clicking it, you'll see this little red light. 30 is a little bit cleaner. It's a little bit more modern. It's a little bit more transparent. It will control the low end a little bit more, as you'll see in some of the examples. And then if you go to 3.75, this is kind of gritty. It's really going to bloom those lows and those low mids. I actually tried this on like a kick drum and a bass the other day, and this setting was absolutely insane for that. So if you want that really big, full kind of low mid saturated tape, I say have the tape speed at like 3.75, drive that thing, and you're going to get something super gritty, super warm, super saturated, but it still sounds very, very usable. And then the last thing is obviously just this little active button. It's just controlling the bypass. So that's the basic layout. It's a really simple unit. It's almost hard to make this sound bad. So let's go ahead and let's dive in so I can show you a couple different things. So right now, I want to show you what specifically this high frequency adjust knob is doing. So I'm going to pull up an instance of Pro Q. There's an instance happening before MixHead and after. So you can see that as we adjust this high frequency adjust, you'll see over here what's happening. So as you can see, even at 6, it's still rather gentle. You're getting about a dB.5 shelf between like 5K all the way up to like infinite. Let me show you too what it kind of looks like when I had this 3.75 on. See how it kind of rolls off the subs, and then these low mids around, like the lows and low mids between like 70 and like maybe 200 start to really bloom a little bit. Let me turn off the hi-fi adjust. See how we're getting a little bit of roll off up top, we're getting a lot more color around here, and we're getting a roll off down here. That's kind of similar to how you would see something like a traditional tape unit. At 15 and at 30, it actually looks pretty similar. But you can really hear a difference when there's like a dense mix and there's a lot of things to listen and pay attention to. So we're going to take a look at all of that, but I did just want to show you what specifically each knob is doing. So now let's take a listen to this thing in action. I have this little pre-master right here that I was working on. This is not a final mix at all, but I'm going to go ahead and set this to factory default and bypass it. This is what it sounds like without the MixHead on. Now let's just go to Serban's preset, the 1, and I'm going to engage it, and then we'll also play around where I can adjust some of the knobs. So here's what it sounds like without, and then we'll have an engage. So as you can see, in Serban's preset, we're just gain staging a little bit. We have a little bit of drive and a little bit of that high frequency boost. And what this is doing to me is it's kind of gluing together that low end. It's making the bass and the kick hit a little bit harder without being super overly transient. And it's getting that vocal to really sit in front of the mix. It's doing this weird thing where it's almost like compressing the mids to the point where I'm getting a more controlled mix, and you can hear every element a little bit more. It just kind of opens up the mix, I feel like. So this unit is a tape saturation unit, but a lot of the time tape saturation can almost impart effects of compression because saturation will do that, and EQ. So just because it's tape saturation, you can use it like an EQ to boost or, take down your high end. You can use it as compression to add some compression with things like gain and drive and saturation. And it's doing a little bit of all of those. Let me show you one more time. I find it super pleasing, super musical. That is what Serban's preset sounds like. There are tons, lots of friends on the channel in here. But I want to go ahead and just show you what it sounds like if we try to dial something in, right? So I'll pay attention to my gain staging, and then I'll show you what all the tape speeds sound like. So there's a little bit more aggressive drive, a little bit more aggressive high shelf. I might bring this down just a hair. Let me show you what the different tape speeds sound like. So we're still at 15. Listen to how different this sounds when I go to 30, and then especially when I go to that 3.5.
I know that you've been looking for somebody to come home to. That don't ain't me no more. You're all out on them other days, 'cause baby girl, I know you. I ain't that dude no more. Nights left.
So we go from really dark and gritty, pretty clean, but still has that tape vibe. Super clean, almost doesn't even feel like tape saturation, really just feels like a hi-fi kind of EQ, a little bit of drive happening. I think that this sounds really, really great. We'll take it super, super dramatic. Let's go the other direction where we make something super tapey. So we'll use that 3.75. We're going to drive this a bunch, pull that output gain down, and we're going to make this super dark by bringing down the high frequency adjust.
I know that you've been looking for somebody to come home to. That don't ain't me no more. You're all out on them other days, 'cause baby girl, I know you.
So I definitely wouldn't use that on this example. However, I do kind of like how those mids really start to bloom. This is a good example how even if you're driving it super, super hard, I think that it's still pretty musical. I wouldn't say that this is necessarily usable for like a mix, but if I dial this back just a hair, like let's say I want to go for like a darker, more mid-forward mix, try something like this.
I know that you've been looking for somebody to come home to.
Or swap to the Serban one and have something super bright, super hi-fi.
I know that you've been looking for somebody to come home to. That don't ain't me no more. You're on.
So it's giving us a lot of different characteristics. Let's hear it on another example just so we can make sure that it's kind of working on different sources. So here is a couple different presets that I've kind of dialed in. So I'll show you what it sounds like without it. So as you can hear, it sounds like it's a lot louder. However, I'm peaking around the same. So since this is adding saturation, it's adding a little bit of that compression and that perceived loudness. I'm not really losing headroom in terms of like sending this to a final limiter or anything. I'm actually just gaining a lot of body and a lot of loudness by adding something like, 4.5. I don't think this is dB, but just 4.5 out of, 14 of drive. It's adding quite a bit of that grit. Let's go ahead and take this to 30, see what it sounds like. See, for something like this, I almost like that 3.75. Maybe I bring the drive down so it's not saturating that low end a little bit. Yeah, once I do that, I add that 3.75, so I'm really like getting that low end to be a little bit more saturated and a little bit bigger. And I'm using that high frequency adjust to just kind of compensate for how dark that will make it. That's like kind of a nice modern scooped result. I'm obviously going a little bit dramatic in this example, but you can kind of play around. All right, let's try it on some stuff that is not like a tuba. So let's try it on individual elements. So I have a little Perc loop here from Sweet Tooth. This will be a cool example of how you can use it on individual elements, individual buses, individual groups. So here's what it sounds like without the MixHead. Let me go ahead and set a quick little loop point, and then I'll just play it without and then with. And I'll show you actually the meters as well too, so you can see that we're not going to get too much extra. So using that 3.75 where I'm letting that kick really get kind of gnarly, really hit hard, I'm using quite a bit of drive. I'm using a little bit of that hi-fi adjust just to kind of make sure that the clap and the hi-hats are still on top. This is nice to me. Do you hear how much louder and more forward and more punchy it sounds? And I'm not losing literally any gain on my meter. I'm not going to hit a limiter harder. I'm not going to clip anything. This is just really the difference of what it comes down to, of getting a mix that feels okay and getting a mix that sounds huge. So using this on different elements. Let me use it on a little melodic element real quick, just to kind of see what this is going to do. Here's like a preset that I'm starting with that I've just kind of tweaked. So here's without it. This is a cool example of how you can use this high frequency adjust to really almost like EQ a source. Saturation really is the key to getting a big, shiny, punchy mix that's just super in your face. Let's hear it on a little vocal stem real quick, and then that'll be the last little thing. So here's some settings that I've got working.
It's coming back.
Here's without.
I feel it like a heart attack.
Get that hi-fi down.
I was losing my mind. Now I'm trying to get it back.
This is kind of doing a good job of controlling some of those low mids that I hate when I'm mixing a vocal, that really chesty, like 300, 400. This is saturating that area in a sense that it's making it a little bit more pleasing for me. It's getting it a little bit brighter. It's getting it a little bit more controlled.
It's coming back. I feel it like a heart attack.
Like I wouldn't do that on a vocal because it's making it a little bit too chesty, but it is a cool difference.
Losing my mind. Now I'm trying to get it back.
But if you wanted to do something like you had a FET mic and you wanted it to feel more like a tube mic, maybe throw this on that 3.75, maybe drive it a little bit, bring the hi-fi down just a little, the high frequency.
I was losing my mind. Now I'm trying to get it back.
Then you can basically turn like an FET into something like a tube mic. So that's what it sounds like on a bunch of different sources. As you can tell, I'm a big fan of this. Not sponsored. I think it is a great plugin. I can totally see why this has been one of the very, very few outboard units that Serban has had in his studio for 20 years. And I can see why Make Believe wanted to go out of their way to really make this, even though it's kind of an obscure unit. So if you want to check it out, go check it out from Make Believe Studio. Let them know that I sent you. Let me know how you like the plugin. If you're looking for something that can just add that last little bit of 10% to your mix bus, or that can make individual elements a little bit bigger, I think this is a really, really, really good version of that kind of plugin. I think it's going to work better than Saturn. I think it's going to work better than like a traditional tape machine unit. I just find that with the lack of controls, you almost are forced to like just hone in. It's really, really hard to make something sound dramatically worse. If you use Saturn wrong, you're going to absolutely obliterate your mix. If you use this wrong, it might just be a little bit too bright or a little bit too saturated. It's not going to be the end of the world. And if you use it right, I think it does a very, very, very good job getting you over that finish line. So hopefully you like this. Hopefully this has inspired you to go listen to some Serban mixes. If you've heard a pop song, you've heard a Serban mix, but try to analyze things. Try to see how he handles high end, how he handles low end, how he handles mids. This plugin does a really good job of shifting a mix more into his kind of ecosystem. So I really, really enjoyed checking this one out. Other than that, let us know if you want us to review any other plugins or gears. We have a couple different how to makes actually coming up very, very soon, including a Billie Eilish one. So if you want to see all of those, make sure that you subscribe to the channel. And if you want to support us, you can head over to makepopmusic.com. We have sample packs, preset packs, MIDI packs, production courses, tons of cool stuff over there, including a bunch of free content. That's just on our website. There will be a link to everything in the description below. Other than that, let me know what your favorite Serban mix is in the comments below, and let me know if you're interested in trying this plugin. But I will see you guys soon with more content. And until then, much love. Peace.